Happy 2026 and welcome back everyone to Maintenance Untangled podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Maintenance Untangled, where we untangle the complexities of maintenance.
Very warm welcome back to my co-host Ricky.
Happy New Year, Derick. Thanks for having me back. I don't know how you put up with me for 5 podcasts already. But yeah, Happy New Year. How was your Christmas, New Year's? Did you party hard or?
No, it was nice and quiet. Time spent with family, just recuperating, trying to, just prepare for the new year. So how about yourself?
Yeah, it was good. Good to spend time with the family. I know my wife and I, we've done a lot of traveling this year, so it's kind of nice to sort of be back in sort of where we are from and spend time with the family, see everybody. And then obviously started to do the good old repairs and maintenance to the caravan after hauling that thing around Australia for the last 10, 12 months. So yeah, it was really good. So what are we going to untangle today in today's episode for this year, Derick?
Ricky, so we're starting off with untangling phishing emails, and then following that's following a story that he told me about, and then we'll talk about labor shortages.
Cool, thanks, Derick. So obviously a different type of safety today. Obviously, you got physical safety, mental safety, and there's also digital safety, and there's a lot of other things you can do. I actually want to talk about phishing because it is everywhere these days. They happen, and it's starting to become really tricky to spot.
All right, Ricky, so let's start with the basics, all right? So what exactly is phishing emails? Because I assume we're not talking about bait and tackle here.
I love it. No, sadly, as much as I'd love to be out on the water, no, it's not about, catching that lovely snapper or that whiting. Phishing emails is all about messages and emails that are sent by cyber criminals. And basically what they want to try and do is trick you into giving out your sensitive information. This could be your password, your bank details, or in a way to try and access your either the company systems or your personal systems itself. They happen because these hackers know how to exploit human psychology, and they really much impersonate trusted sources. Their emails very much create a sense of emergency, or even use fear to get you to click a link. Example being is, click this link right now because your account itself is blocked. And they're starting to use AI more and more to be able to get that sort of information.
Ricky, what are some examples of these?
So the good old classic, I'm a Nigerian prince, I've accumulated all this wealth and I want to share it with you, is just one of the classic scams that are out there. There's other ones such as, and I'll put the spelling up on screen, is they write Microsoft, but instead of using an M, they use an RN. And it's very a subtle typo that's actually caught a few people out because they go, so you're Microsoft emailing me, and it's all about creating that urgency and fear, like I said. So, there's a lot others out there, so.
So, Ricky, it's not just about bad spelling and weird links anymore. There's more to it.
Oh, they are so convincing, some of them nowadays that I've seen. I've even seen seasoned professionals get caught. Sometimes they impersonate your CEO, they impersonate your IT department, contractors. Here's your invoice. So it's a lot of it is just about making sure that you look before you act.
So, Ricky, both of us are small business operators, so surely they only attack big companies.
You only hear about the ones where the attacks are on the big companies. So I'll tell you a little story. A mate of mine works for, get this, company XYZ. For those who aren't aware, go and have a look at some previous podcasts in the bloopers reel. It's a good laugh. But basically, their business was hit by attack. $1.4 million was requested as a ransom from these cyber criminals. And it's all because someone clicked a link that was dodgy within an email. Pay your invoice type thing.
So, Ricky, what can people do to protect themselves?
So the first thing that I think people really need to do is when they get an email that's out of the blue, doesn't seem right, is just pause, take a breath, look at the email, really check it over. Is the email addresses correct? Is it actually coming from the source? Put your mouse over any potential links. Have a look at the links. Are the links legit? If it doesn't look legit, don't click it. Don't do any downloads of anything, because that is how they get you. Make sure that obviously your junk folder, you're making sure that that's obviously being used, and also as well, personally, that you've got good security software on your computers. Making sure that things such as your multi-factor authentication is actually used. I know those text messages are annoying, and you got to punch in 6-letter code every time. You got to log into something, but that is there for a reason, and that is to make sure that nothing suspicious is happening.
All right. So what about businesses? How can they avoid being the next company XYZ?
Sure thing, Derick. So the first thing is, if you're a company with more than a couple of FTE, key thing is to make sure that you're implementing regular employee training. So this is having systems in place whereabouts you can send out fake spam emails, so people are aware of what they are looking for, to make sure that they don't click these suspicious links. Obviously, again, making sure that you've got advanced security tools. The example thing, Microsoft, I think, is one of them off the top of my head. There's a few others out there. Don't have auto forwarding macros and those kind of things, and do training on incident response plans. Have those plans in place. Do training to make sure that if something does happen, how do we go about it effectively? Those kind of things. So it's just making sure that as a business, you're covering yourself and making sure you're doing training and those kind of things. So yeah, I just obviously wanted to share that with you, Derick. It was a little bit interesting to have that conversation with a mate of mine going, shit, $1.4 million is what they were requesting. At the end of the day, they didn't have any information. No ransom was paid. So they were very, very lucky. But I know that there's a lot of businesses out there who aren't as lucky.
Yep.
Hey, time for a technical subject. Labour shortages. It's something that's going on in the market right now. Very challenging for a lot of businesses. Let's dive into that.
Thanks, Ricky. All right. So right now, look, I get numerous requests for additional labor, right? And there is a shortage in Australia, and this is across most industries right now.
And Derick, what do you feel is actually causing these shortages?
Ricky, when there's such a large shortage across the board, right, it's the largest systemic problem, and which I would prefer not to discuss today, else we might start talking politics.
No, fair call. We could easily turn this into a 24-hour podcast if we started talking politics. I know how you and I can get sometimes. Nor would our listeners would appreciate. So I suppose for this situation, Derick, what are some things that people can do?
Look, Ricky, that's a great question, and I think that's what I really want to untangle today, right? So, what is your options if you've got labor shortages and there's not a lot of people around? What can you do? So, the first thing you can do is start doing smart contracting, right? So, really consider what repetitive tasks you have, and whether they can be outsourced.
What are some of those examples of those repetitive tasks, Derick?
Okay, so think about things like a screen rebuild or a pump rebuild, or even if you've got repetitive weld repairs on ladles, right? It's not too complex to write a detailed scope of work, clear deliverables and requirements, and then establish a contract with a specific service provider to deliver that service to you, because it's got a high repeatability, and therefore you can outsource that, and that's what I mean with smart outsourcing. Just look at those high repetitive tasks and think about, can I outsource this to somebody else?
Is there any potential risks with that?
Yes, there is always a risk. The risk is if it's a highly skilled task that you outsource, you could potentially outsource a high a highly technical skill set, which then means you as a business carry a risk. Should that contractor fail or for some reason leave, there's a risk to your business that you don't contain that skill set anymore. And that's why I say, look at things that's fairly low technical requirement, but that's not a massive risk to your business, if that makes sense.
Yep.
All right. Next up, backfilling, right? So if you need a planner, rather than trying to source a planner externally, why not just ask one of your trades to step up into the planner role, and then you rather backfill the trades role with a labor hire.
In a way, Derick, that almost sounds counterintuitive. So why would you be saying that?
Ricky, so one, it upskills your crew, it helps them develop, and again, you retain in-house knowledge. So the knowledge from the floor now goes into your planning function, and the planner now has a different skill set, and he can more easily plan a task because he actually has executed the task before. So you retain that knowledge and you build that knowledge base. And again, it's a way of upskilling your personnel.
Would that be a flowback process? As in, obviously now the trade's been in that planner role. Would the trade then have a better understanding about the planning process?
100%. So that's the two benefits. It's the same reason why you get one of your trades to act as a supervisor, because then he understands the supervision role and he then reacts differently towards the supervisor because he understands the responsibility of the supervisor. So it's also about making people understand, what each I almost want to say each cock in the gearbox or each gear, what each one does, and it makes it easier to understand, who does what. All right. So next is prioritizing roles, right? So if you short trades, really consider where to apply your most experienced personnel.
And what do you mean by that, Derick?
So what I mean with that is if you have a day crew and shift crews, right, which a lot of organizations these days have. So rather than move all of your experience move all your experience to your shift crews, or not all of them, but some of your experienced guys, because they're at the forefront of ensuring your plant keeps running, and they're the guys, really addressing all of your breakdowns. So if you add your higher skilled guys in there, more experienced, obviously your turnaround and breakdowns is a lot quicker. And then you just backfill your day crew, which does the routine maintenance type of work. But that's also a balance, right? So you need to ensure that you still keep some experience in your day crew, and then you need to ensure that you prioritize your work accordingly. And with that, I mean, you need to ensure that you give your more experienced trades your critical asset PMs to complete. Now, if you add all of your experience onto your shift and your day trades are less experienced, remember your shift crews are normally your firefighters, and they're the ones that if there's a breakdown, the PMs get moved sideways and not completed. And the risk that you carry then is that your critical asset PMs isn't done. So therefore, you need to keep that balance between the two. Have enough experience on your shift crews to do firefighting effectively, but also have enough experience on your day crew to make sure that your critical asset PMs get completed properly. And again, then you need to make sure that you assign those critical asset PMs to the right people.
So kind of in a way, it also refers back to what we discussed with the backfilling piece about also giving the non-experienced day shift guys that experience as well by pairing them with an experienced trade.
100%. Right. So then scrutinizing your work requests. Now, this is something we've discussed previously. We'll discuss it in a future episode when we talk about work management. But this to me is really, really, really one of the most important steps is you really need to look at your, the work request going into your CMS. You have to put it through a thorough approval and prioritization process. Again, because if you burn hours on low priority work, you won't have time for your critical work.
So what's your advice for our listeners on this? I know you and I have spoken very intently on this on multiple different conversations, and it's something that obviously, I've got family who still work in the industry very heavily, and my brother-in-law and I had a very heavy discussion on this last night, actually. But what's your your advice on this? Like, would you upskill a leading hand to assist, or would you have maintenance and operations sit down hand in hand and go through some of those work requests together to fully understand what is the high priority, what is the low priority?
Ricky, my advice, and probably the best I've seen in industry, is you create the habit as part of your daily production meeting or your shift start meeting where you've got both operations and maintenance in the same room, is to take an additional 5 minutes and review all the work requests that you received the previous day. Now, this doesn't include your breakdown work requests because obviously the guys just go and do it and it's a breakdown. But all the other work requests is to sit together, because what is perceived as high priority from an operational guy might not be perceived as high priority from maintenance personnel, and vice versa. And therefore, it's important to have the two people in the same room have a 5 minutes conversation and agree, yes, we need to do this urgently, or no, we can do this in whenever we get a chance for it, or when we have a budget of people to actually do it. And just have that conversation, because it's also then to say to the operations guy, look, I don't have enough labor at this point in time, so for the next 4 weeks we'll be short-handed. So therefore, if this can move out 4 weeks, can we move it out? And you'll say yes or no. And that's just to make sure that you really, understand both from a maintenance and operational perspective whether this is really a risk or not, and whether we should be doing it or not, or can we just leave it until the labor shortage clears up or something. And by doing that in that 5 minutes, you also eliminate another meeting, because people are time poor as it is. So if you can eliminate an additional meeting, that's my advice. Just try and do it, back it onto the back of your normal operational meeting.
Yeah, who loves another meeting? And you said 5. We've had 4. What's the last one?
All right. So Ricky, shutdown prioritization. Now, if you struggle to source enough labor to complete all of your work during the shutdown, reconsider what you're actually doing. And again, so this goes back to prioritization and understanding. The tendency is always to do as much as work as possible when the plant's down. That's the sort of the maintenance mentality, has always been. And I'm of an opposite mindset, because during a shutdown, it's your highest risk, highest value work. All the external labor is expensive, and it is you're not producing, so zero income, and therefore really challenge what work you're doing. So if you really can, you should ask the question: is there another way that I can do this work outside of the shutdown, or that I do not have to do it? So, and it's about challenging your team's thinking, to do really as little as possible work during the shutdown, because the less people you need, the more likely it is that you can actually complete this work with your own resources, or at least a large chunk of it. And caveat to this, it excludes specialists like mullery liners and that kind of skill sets where you use external specialists. But my favorite quote, anybody who knows me will know, I've said it a million times: the best shutdown ever is the one you've never done. Right? So if you can eliminate the shutdown, that's the best you can do.
You don't want to eliminate all shutdowns.
Ricky, if you go and ask any CFO in a company, if you can eliminate all shutdowns in your company, and if you ask that same question to your safety manager, they will all say, yes, we would love it. So if you can eliminate all shutdowns, brilliant. Is it technically feasible? Yes or no. Certain plants you can, certain plants you can't. But you can definitely reduce your effort in your shutdown to either make it mini shuts. So if you have a plant that's got multiple processing lines, you can do a mini shut on this line, mini shut on that line, which means smaller skills or smaller amount of labor required, which again benefits you in the labor shortage market. So, and that's ultimately what you're trying to do, is that you're trying to reduce your amount of maintenance effort as much as possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Derick. Great insight, as always. I believe that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for your technical insight. It's always good to have a listen, and everyone who is listening, thank you very much. We appreciate your support. Derick, what are we untangling next week?
All right, because so next week we're talking about safety PM checks, and we had a request to dive more into CMS master data. So, if you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, share it with a colleague. Join us next time for some more practical tips and deep dives. We've always got some amazing topics lined up for this coming year, and we'll be speaking to a few guests during this year as well. And look, if there's any specific topics you would like us to discuss, please give us a shout. Send us a message on most platforms. Both me and Ricky's on LinkedIn. You can find us there. Send us a message or just comment on wherever you're watching this. Just give us a comment, and we'll try and address all the topics people want to talk about. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and keep untangling maintenance.